The boy's glasses lay in the culvert, forgotten. Single-hinged tortoiseshell frames with thick lenses, uncommon in their design. An ordinary pair of eyeglasses, really, except for one crucial detail. Only 3 people in all of Chicago had been prescribed this particular model from the Almer Coe and Company opticians. 2 were elderly women who hadn't left their homes in weeks. The third was an 18-year-old University of Chicago law student named Nathan Leopold Jr. It was May 22, 1924, and the discovery of these glasses, mere feet from where the naked, disfigured body of 14-year-old Bobby Franks had been found stuffed into a drainage culvert, would unravel what its perpetrators had believed was the perfect crime. Chicago in the Roaring Twenties pulsed with contradictions. Prohibition-era speakeasies thrived alongside houses of worship. Jazz music spilled into streets where Model Ts navigated around horse-drawn carriages. The Great War had ended, leaving in its wake a generation desperate to shed the shadows of death. The city embodied America's newfound prosperity and decadence, a playground for the wealthy and ambitious. Among Chicago's elite were 2 brilliant young men from millionaire families, Nathan Babe Leopold and Richard Dickey Loeb. Leopold, with an IQ reportedly near 200, spoke multiple languages, was an accomplished ornithologist, and had already begun law studies at the University of Chicago by age 18. Loeb, charismatic and handsome, had graduated from the University of Michigan at 19, becoming its youngest alumnus. Born into privilege, educated at the finest schools, and raised with every advantage money could buy, these 2 young men seemed destined for greatness. What no one could have imagined was that these same promising youths were about to commit one of the most shocking crimes of the century, not from desperation or passion, but from an ice-cold philosophical conviction that they were superior beings, above the moral constraints that governed ordinary men. The Leopold and Loeb case represents a pivotal moment in American criminal history, notes historian Simon Botts, author of For the Thrill of It, Leopold, Loeb, and the Murder That Shocked Chicago. It was a crime that seemed to embody all the anxieties of the modern age about wealth, about youth, about the influence of new and dangerous ideas. Their relationship was complex and symbiotic. Leopold, socially awkward but intellectually superior, was infatuated with Loeb's charm and good looks. Loeb, though intellectually gifted, was emotionally stunted, obsessed with detective novels and crime. He found in Leopold a willing accomplice who could help plan the intricate details of criminal schemes. Where Leopold was calculating and methodical, Loeb was impulsive and thrill-seeking. Together they formed a dangerous partnership fueled by an intoxicating cocktail of Nietzschean philosophy, sexual tension, and the bottomless arrogance of youth. Leopold had become entranced by Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the superman who transcends conventional morality. He genuinely believed that he and Loeb were these superior beings, exempt from the rules governing ordinary people. In letters to Loeb, Leopold wrote, "A superman is, on account of certain superior qualities inherent in him, exempted from the ordinary laws which govern men. He is not liable for anything he may do." By early 1924, their petty crimes, vandalism, theft, arson, no longer satisfied their craving for the ultimate thrill. They began planning what they considered would be an intellectual exercise of the highest order, the perfect murder. They would kidnap and kill a child, collect a ransom, and get away with it through sheer intellectual superiority. The victim would be selected almost at random, a demonstration of their godlike power over life and death. For 6 months, they meticulously planned every detail. They purchased a chisel as their murder weapon, acid to obscure the victim's identity, and a typewriter to compose a ransom note. They mapped escape routes, created alibis, and rehearsed their plan repeatedly. They even rented a car under a false name to avoid being connected to the crime. On the afternoon of May 21, 1924, as children walked home from school in Chicago's affluent Kenwood neighborhood, Leopold and Loeb cruised slowly in their rented Willie's Night automobile. They were hunting. Their chosen prey would be male, young, and, most importantly, from a wealthy family who could pay a substantial ransom. Bobby Franks, the 14-year-old son of wealthy industrialist Jacob Franks, was walking home when Loeb, whom he knew casually as his neighbor's older brother, offered him a ride. Once inside the car, the boy was bludgeoned with a chisel and suffocated. His body was stripped, partially submerged in acid, and hidden in a culvert near Wolf Lake, a remote area on the Illinois-Indiana border that Leopold knew well from his birdwatching expeditions. The ransom note, carefully typed and signed George Johnson, was delivered to the Franks family, demanding $10,000 for Bobby's safe return. The instructions were elaborate, designed to allow the killers to collect the money without being caught, but the ransom would never be collected. Before the kidnappers could execute this phase of their plan, a laborer discovered Bobby's body. And then there were those glasses, Nathan Leopold's custom-made traceable glasses that had fallen from his pocket during the disposal of the body. The glasses were the thread that, when pulled, unraveled their entire scheme, explains crime historian Harold Schechter. It's one of history's great ironies that these self-proclaimed geniuses were undone by such a simple error. When questioned about his glasses, Leopold claimed he must have lost them while bird-watching in the area days earlier. It seemed plausible. Leopold was a recognized expert ornithologist who had published scholarly articles on the subject. But when detectives discovered that the rare bird Leopold claimed to be observing wasn't actually native to the area, suspicion deepened. Meanwhile, the rental car used in the crime had been located, with bloodstains that Leopold and Loeb had failed to completely clean. Under intense questioning, their carefully constructed alibis that they had spent the day driving around with two women whose names they couldn't remember began to crumble. On May 31st, after nearly 33 hours of interrogation, Richard Loeb confessed. Leopold's confession soon followed. The city was stunned. The Chicago Tribune's headline screamed, "Killboy in Thrill Murder." The idea that two young men from prominent, wealthy families could commit such a cold-blooded crime for intellectual thrills struck at the heart of American assumptions about privilege, education, and morality. The Leopold and Loeb case forced Americans to confront troubling questions about modern society, notes cultural historian Paula Foss. If even the best families, the finest education, and the most privileged upbringing could produce such monsters, what did that say about American culture itself? As details of their confessions emerged, the public's horror deepened. Leopold and Loeb showed no remorse. They described the murder in clinical detail, as if discussing a laboratory experiment. When asked why they killed Bobby Franks, Loeb replied simply, "For the experience." Leopold elaborated that they wanted to commit a perfect crime. They had selected Franks almost at random. He was simply convenient prey. Their families, devastated but still wielding considerable influence, hired the most famous attorney in America to defend their sons, Clarence Darrow, renowned for his opposition to capital punishment. At 67, Darrow was nearing the end of his legendary career. He had initially planned to plead the boys not guilty by reason of insanity, but facing overwhelming evidence and their own confessions, he made a tactical decision that would change the course of American legal history. Darrow persuaded Leopold and Loeb to change their pleas to guilty, thus avoiding a jury trial. Instead, their fate would be decided solely by Judge John R. Caverly in a sentencing hearing. It was a gamble. Pleading guilty to first-degree murder typically meant a guaranteed death sentence. But Darrow believed he could make a more compelling case for mercy to a single judge than to a jury inflamed by public outrage. What followed was one of the most remarkable legal spectacles of the 20th century. For 32 days during the sweltering Chicago summer of 1924, the world's attention focused on a courtroom where Darrow would battle state's attorney Robert Crowe for the lives of Leopold and Loeb. The prosecution presented the cold facts of the crime, portraying the defendants as calculating, remorseless killers who deserved nothing less than death. Crowe described them as perverted geniuses and spoiled rich kids who killed for kicks. They have shown no remorse, no contrition, nothing but cold intellectual pride in their perfect crime, Crowe told the court. They killed little Bobby Franks as they would kill a spider. Darrow's strategy was revolutionary for its time. Rather than denying his client's guilt or diminishing the horror of their crime, he embraced a new approach. He would put modern psychology on trial. He assembled a team of psychiatrists and psychologists who examined the young men extensively. Their testimony introduced concepts unfamiliar to most Americans, psychiatric terms like emotional immaturity, obsessive compulsive behavior, and symbiotic relationship entered the public lexicon. The defense portrayed Leopold and Loeb not as evil, but as emotionally damaged children in men's bodies. They highlighted Leopold's social isolation and obsession with Nietzschean philosophy, and Loeb's childhood traumas and fantasies of criminal grandeur. Their wealth, rather than being an advantage, had insulated them from normal social development. This terrible crime was inherent in his organism, and it came from some ancestor, Darrow said of Loeb. Is any blame attached because somebody took Nietzsche's philosophy seriously and fashioned his life upon it? It is hardly fair to hang a 19-year-old boy for the philosophy that was taught him at the university. On August 22, 1924, Darrow delivered his famous 12-hour summation against capital punishment, widely considered one of the most eloquent courtroom speeches in American history. He did not ask for acquittal or even sympathy for Leopold and Loeb. He asked only for understanding and mercy. I am pleading for the future, Darrow told the court. I am pleading for a time when hatred and cruelty will not control the hearts of men, when we can learn by reason and judgment and understanding that all life is worth saving and that mercy is the highest attribute of man. On September 10, 1924, Judge Caverly delivered his verdict. Leopold and Loeb would be spared the gallows. Instead, they were sentenced to life imprisonment for murder, plus 99 years for kidnapping. The judge made clear that his leniency was based primarily on the defendant's youth rather than on the psychological evidence presented. Nonetheless, the case marked a turning point in how the American legal system considered psychological factors in criminal behavior. The public reaction was mixed. Many applauded the decision as humane and forward-thinking. Others were outraged, believing justice had been thwarted by wealth and influence. The Chicago Herald and Examiner captured this sentiment. There isn't money enough in all the loop to save from the gallows any poor devil who commits such a revolting crime. Life in prison brought different fates for the thrill killers. Richard Loeb, the more sociable and adaptable of the pair, became popular among inmates. He taught classes in the prison school and seemed to find some measure of purpose. But his life was cut short on January 28, 1936, when he was slashed to death with a razor in the prison shower, reportedly after making sexual advances toward another inmate. He was 31 years old. Nathan Leopold continued his intellectual pursuits behind bars. He mastered 27 languages, reorganized the prison library, volunteered for malaria treatment experiments, and established a school for fellow inmates. He became a model prisoner in every sense, seemingly intent on redeeming himself through service. After 33 years in prison, Leopold was paroled in 1958. He moved to Puerto Rico, as far from Chicago's memories as possible, where he worked in hospitals, taught at the University of Puerto Rico, and wrote an autobiography titled Life Plus 99 Years. He married a widowed florist and lived quietly until his death from heart failure in 1971 at age 66. Before his death, Leopold reflected on his crime in a rare interview. I have had more than 30 years to think about what I did. I am completely contrite. There has not been a day in all those years when I have not felt the most sincere, the most profound remorse. The case entered the American cultural lexicon, inspiring countless books, plays, and films. Alfred Hitchcock's 1948 film Rope was loosely based on the crime, as was Richard Fleischer's 1959 film Compulsion and Tom Kalin's 1992 Swoon. Meyer Levin's 1956 novel Compulsion became a bestseller and is still considered one of the first non-fiction novels, predating Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. The drainage culvert where Bobby Frank's body was found has vanished beneath Chicago's expanding landscape. The courtroom where Darrow pleaded for mercy has been renovated beyond recognition. Even the sand dunes where Leopold claimed to watch his birds have been reshaped by time. All physical traces have been washed away by the relentless tide of decades. All that remains is that single pair of tortoiseshell glasses, not the physical object, but the haunting symbol it has become. Those forgotten glasses linking privilege to depravity, genius to madness, philosophy to murder, they lie there still in our collective memory, those damning spectacles through which two young men once viewed a world they believed themselves too superior to share with a 14-year-old boy named Bob.